I'm excited to celebrate the council's approval of a ordinance that I author alongside council members Ellison and council member Chavez to ban rent algorithms. Minneapolis will now be the third city in the nation to ban algorithms that use non-public data to advise landlords on rent and vacancy levels. Minneapolis is 50% renters, and approximately 1 in 7 rental units in the Twin Cities is managed using rental algorithms. Like the building behind us actually right now, they also uses this service. In these units, renters pay an average of $312 more per year, and buildings that use these algorithms also have higher eviction rates, and more so than buildings that don't use this technology. Big corporate landlords also use these algorithms to manipulate the market and essentially exploit renters, and that's why San Francisco and Philadelphia have already banned them. And that's also why current legislation is moving through our state capitol right now to also ban them. It's also why the Biden Department of Justice and more than 10 attorney generals across the country, including our own here, Attorney General Ellison, are currently suing one of the companies that provides these algorithms and 6 of the largest landlords in the country that uses this software. Of the 6 landlords that are being currently sued under the lawsuit by the Department of Justice, 5 operate right here in Minneapolis. And one of these landlords, Greystar, operates several buildings in the university area as well as all across the city. And student renters that I represent are particularly vulnerable to the exploitation due to many of them being first-time renters and also being constrained by the need to live close to campus. And many of these renters are thus forced to work multiple jobs or even take out additional student loans in order to just cover their rent. And rent costs being unaffordable is one of the top complaints that I hear from my residents, and it impacts the choices that our students make about whether or not to stay in Minneapolis after they have graduated. So banning algorithms that landlords use to jack up rent is one clear way that we can prevent some of our most egregious obstructive practices that landlords like Greystar use that essentially creates housing instability for so many of our residents. Rent algorithm software has no place in a city that champions to have an equitable and affordable housing market, especially for our renters. And with this ban now approved, I look forward to continuing the work with renters, with my colleagues, community leaders, and city staff, as well as students who we'll hear from in a few minutes on how we can take additional actions to ensure that every renter in Minneapolis has an affordable, stable place to call home. So with that, I will call up our undergraduate student government rep, Sia, to share some words.
Hello everyone. Thank you for coming together to celebrate the passage of this ordinance. My name is Sia Shalar, and I'm the Director of Local Affairs for the University of Minnesota's undergraduate student government. I work closely with the Minneapolis City Council, especially the Ward 2 office, to advocate and support policy initiatives that support U of M students, one of which is renter and tenant rights. With over 30,000 undergraduate students at the University of Minnesota, 75% of them live off campus. When it comes to housing near the University of Minnesota campus, student renters are in a unique and vulnerable position due to the geographical limitations. They have limited housing options that they can consider, and they must sign leases under immense time constraints due to the high demand. In this process, a majority of students, including myself, are first-time renters living alone for the first time. As the demand for housing remains high, students are often at the mercy of landlords across the neighborhoods surrounding the university who are able to charge inflated rent prices at inconsistent rates. Unfortunately, in recent years, we've seen a growing trend where rent prices have skyrocketed due to algorithmic-driven price manipulation. These algorithms have further intensified the current housing affordability crisis, impacting not only Minneapolis but many other major cities. It has profound long-term implications on what students are able to sustain the standard of living required to reside here post-grad, a decision no one should have to make just because it's too expensive. The passage of this ordinance was critical in working to resolving these inequitable rental rates, protecting tenant rights, and promoting affordable housing for community members, which includes U of M students. Many students have to sacrifice and make difficult trade-offs in order to make ends meet. including sacrificing basic needs, taking on multiple jobs, and enduring overcrowded living conditions like living with 4 to 5 people just to afford rent. In 2019, a survey by the U revealed that 43% of students expressed concerns over housing affordability, a number that has only grown with increasing costs. The student government has staunchly supported this ordinance since its inception. In recent years, we have heard from our student body about their concerns regarding housing. According to our own survey that garnered over 2,000 responses, 1,500 students either saw somewhat or strongly agree that the university could do more to raise awareness about support services for housing insecurity. In collaboration with the Minneapolis City Council, our student government wrote and passed a letter of support urging for this policy in light of increasing predatory practices by corporate landlords. We've also done Know Your Rights initiatives that helped teach student renters how to advocate for their rights. And this ordinance includes a private right of action that allows students and other tenants to take legal action if their landlords are using these AI systems. While some advocating for student renters is an initiative that USJ has continuously fought for, despite the impression that we are temporary residents within the city of Minneapolis. While the same students might not live in this area long term, it is undeniable that there will always be new students moving into the area from across the country to pursue an education. Policies such as these impact not only current student tenants, but the thousands of future renters who will be there long after I even graduate. I want to thank the City Council for their immense work and support of students. This type of work is only possible when policymakers recognize the value of centering student voices, and the undergraduate looks forward to collaborating with them in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sia. So happy to have the babies here. You're a young adult. Next, I'm going to have Councilmember Chavez, who also co-authored this ordinance, to share some words.
Thanks, Councilmember. Hi, everyone. Jason Chavez, City Council member in the 9th Ward. I'll keep my remarks short. I think part of the reason why this ordinance is really important in this moment and in this time is because many of our constituents are currently facing a lot of issues with paying their rent, paying for food, paying to meet their basic services in the current conditions that we are in the economy right now in the city and across the country. And this particular ordinance is going to help address some of those concerns. Councilmember Wansley read out the statistics already about how much more on average residents have to pay because of this kind of algorithmic pricing in our city and across the country, quite frankly. And our hope today is to ensure that there's accountability, but that more residents can actually, pay their rent. Part of this ordinance is to help prevent displacement from happening in the city, making sure that we can keep people in their homes instead of being priced out. It follows the ordinances that we have been working on the City Council just last year, our 30-day rental pre-eviction notice that is a really great ordinance that's going to be paired up with this as well. So really excited to be here today and glad that it passed 11-2 today on the City Council. So that's a big showing of confidence from this body, and really proud of the amount of the work that students have done to organize around this effort as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Chavez. And to close us out, I'll have co-author Councilmember Jeremiah Ellison.
Hi, Jeremiah Ellison, represent Ward 5, North Minneapolis, and excited to be here. You guys heard, the testimony from Sia. I hope you guys are wise enough to know that of the 4 of us, her opinion is the one that matters the most here, right? Directly impacted, advocating for students is critically important. It's why we do this work, is because we hear from people who are directly affected, whether they live North Side, U of M, South Side, it doesn't matter. So thank you for your advocacy. I think it's pretty simple, right? I think that landlords should be figuring out what they need in terms of rent from their renters in order to provide dignified, adequate service. That's what should be happening. They shouldn't be using high-tech collusion to gut every single dime they can out of a renter, which is what these algorithms calculate. It's what they do. We had somebody who gave testimony a couple of weeks ago, I think put it really well. They said, look, if all these CEOs got in a room together and made these choices, it would be illegal, clear-cut illegal. So why is it not? So why is it permitted if they use technology to do the collusion for them? Well, it shouldn't be permitted. The DOJ, at least formally, didn't think it should be permitted, and 10 attorney generals around the country don't think it should be permitted. And so, we're here to make sure that consumers in our city are protected. We're here to make sure that that renters in our city aren't being gouged when they go to rent an apartment. Again, you heard the statistics that Robin rattled off, but I do want to just add just a few things. One is that we're seeing Providence, Rhode Island, Portland, Oregon, Berkeley, California, all hearing a testimony this week to pass ordinances just like this one. And so you're seeing that this kind of policy is expanding across the country. It's not something that Minneapolis did first. It's not something that we're doing alone. And it is going to be something that I believe, at least with time, we're going to see start happening statewide across the country. Because people deserve to participate in a fair marketplace, not a rigged one. So thank you all, and I'm sure we're happy to stand for any questions.
So there was discussion in council today about how this would get enforced. How would someone, if you're a renter, how would you know that this software was in use to make, even like form the basis of a complaint if that's part of? I mean, I know there's other steps involved in the enforcement of self-attestation, but like if you're a renter and you want to complain about this, like how would you know?
Yeah. So we've heard from renters that they started with the basis of an increase in their rent, and they followed up with their property owner, and also through the complaint process, they followed up with the city. They said, my landlord increased my rent. How or what mechanisms do I have to take some recourse? And again, part of this ordinance is self-attestation. So the city then has the ability, through passage of this ordinance, to look at a property owner's license to say, did this property owner verify that they are not using it? And they can do their own investigation and figure out how to hold that property owner accountable. So that's why we have a complaint process. Student or renters, they can use increases. There's a multitude of ways in which they can say, I would like to have this be investigated.
So, like, is there a way to know? Like, if you're you get a rent increase maybe because, you get a rent increase.
Mm-hmm.
So like, or is, I'm just like as an end user trying to tell someone how to like look out for this type of thing happening.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything like red flags that tend to go up or anything like that?
Yeah, I think again, this is just giving our regulatory department more tools when they receive a complaint to say, we can do an investigation and see using the renewal licenses. There's other ways in which they can explore that to verify if this technology is being used. But it starts with the complaint process. And I think it does start with, if you get an increase, you can inquire about what led to that increase. And I want most renters in our city to start doing that. Most oftentimes they don't know, in addition to this, they have a multitude of other protections that they can explore, and they can make complaints to the city for us to help essentially advocate on their behalf. And this is just an additional tool.
Is there any other recourse that, besides the civil action that Councilmember Ellison, you had mentioned, besides like revoking a landlord's rental license, is there any other recourse that reg services can take against landlords who are found to be using this software?
Yeah, so in alignment with other renter protections or tenant protections that council has passed, regulatory service department has a menu of options. So they can pursue a citation, or they could recommend moving a property owner to a different rental tier. All things that they can do prior to deciding on a revocation, or maybe it's their discretion to go there. But either way, it gives them a menu of options that they currently have to figure out how to enact that recourse.
What San Francisco, Philadelphia, what do you hear from them? How long has it been in place? What kind of results are they seeing?
Yeah, so I think you've also touched on this, but in terms of their relatively new ordinances, because again, like this technology and its detection of it has started relatively recently, especially with the DOJ lawsuits, bringing it to the forefront. So cities are now, like those two that you named, Philadelphia and San Francisco, they proactively pass these policies because they also don't want to see the expansion or expanded use of these technologies in their respective cities that's already experiencing their own housing crisis. So they took the proactive approach to say, let's ban it. We're realizing a national trend is happening, and do what we can to ensure an equitable and fair housing market for our renters.
Can I chime in on an earlier question?
Yeah.
I just want to chime in on an earlier question. Is is your question essentially how did past renters discover this problem, that they were victims of this problem?
Yeah, and I mean, even now that this exists, how would you know enough to make a complaint? I
Yeah.
mean, you know, like people's rent goes up all the time. So.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think it's a good example. I'll use a different topic just to provide an example, right? So over north, you have elevated asthma rates, right? That you don't have in other parts of the city. Well, how do people know whether it's the highway or the polluter on the river or that polluter or that polluter? How do they know, right? People talk to their neighbors. They talk to one another. People, as far as how this problem came to be, is that renters were talking to one another. This problem hits you directly in your pockets. If you don't notice that, you're doing really, really well in life, right? And so people noticed that that something was up with the way that their increases were occurring. They started talking to one another. They started inquiring about whether their consumer rights were being violated. And guess what? Surprise, surprise, they were right. And so, you know, I think that the way that you know is that you start with the hunch. You start with the harm. What harm are you experiencing? You move on to talking to your neighbors. I don't know a single problem in American history that hasn't been solved that way. Do you know of any? Yeah, so I don't know. So I guess I find the question a little bit odd sometimes, where it's like the onus has to be on like the renter to know for certain right in the onset as they experience the harm. People know when they talk to one another, when they investigate together, and in this case, with these rent algorithms and the effects that they're having, it was proven correct.
Do you get an email from RealPage or whatever? It's like, you have gotten a 3% rent increase, and you know, your new rent was set by RealPage. I mean, like, is it?
You're asking if the violators tell you that they're violating you.
Well, I mean, they don't think it's a violation. I'm just like, I don't know if there's, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know.
I'm just like, is it?
Yeah,
like, how would you know to make a complaint? That's all.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess I feel like I've answered the question, but it feels like you haven't. Okay, yeah.
If renters in Minneapolis do see a pattern and they think it's because of algorithms, where should they go to file a complaint?
Absolutely. We love advocating for our residents to use 311. 311 is a great resource to get your complaint documented, and then follow up even with your council member, because then we can use that 311 complaint to go follow up with regulatory service departments and say, hey, we just got this inquiry, we're just making sure you know about it. But our 311 number, you can file a complaint either via phone or online. It's always a great place to register your complaint.
And does this apply to students as well?
If you're a student and you're a renter, it applies to every resident across the city. Yep.
Quick question for the students.
Hi.
The first one's simple. How do you spell your name?
Oh, yeah. So my first name is Sia, S-I-Y-A, and my last name is Shalar, S-H-E-L-A-R.
Student at you?
Yes.
What level?
I'm a sophomore.
How many years have you rented over there?
This is my first year renting.
First year.
Yeah. And I'm a first-gen student. My parents immigrated here from India, so when it comes to a lot of the renters' rights things we've been doing, it's very much like a first-hand impact, and like the information that we're seeing versus not seeing. I'm doing that by myself. My parents were not renters, they're homeowners, and so it is a very, very new experience. And then so I think, sorry, you didn't ask this, but I'm just gonna talk and ramble. But I think when you ask, like, how are people gonna file stuff, let's be honest, pursuing litigation costs a lot of money, and I don't think you should be able to afford that litigation to have those rights on set and be protected from it on set. And that's what I really appreciate about the city and these council members being proactive and doing that ahead of time, because now I know that it is illegal, instead of having to like hunt and look and have to prove it myself. Because let's be real, like, especially students, our voices are not heard. It's often like, you are temporary residents of the city of Minneapolis, but like, even if I graduate, these policies will apply and stay here, and that's really, really powerful. So yeah.
Do you have an idea of what Mayor Fry is going to, if he's going to approve or veto this ordinance?
No. The hope is he recognizes this is an issue and will sign the ordinance. Any other questions? Okay.
Cool.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys.
Yes.
Hey, good job. Thanks again. Great meeting you. The I think the field, whether